Wow. It's been about 2 months. Today's September 20th. And nothing really to film, honestly. I think I said in the one video I could have did film the spraying, but I'm not going to do that. You know what, whether you know or not, whatever. But that being said, it is now approaching the harvest time, and let's see what we got going on. So, just a quick recap of the season, where this field here, this was the first field that I planted on May 10th. I believe it was like May 8th. It was a Monday. I started chisel plowing this field and getting it cultipacted, and the next day basically started planting and got it done on May 10th, and just basically spent the following like 13 days of getting everything in. Took about 5 days to get all the beans in, and then it took like a week and a half to get the corn in because it was getting dry. The points on the chisel plows were kind of dull, and even new points weren't really helping because the ground was getting hard, so I had to add some weight. But hindsight, especially using something I've never used before, that was the first time we've used disc chisels like that, and they worked awesome, especially if you had some weight in the back. So I have all kinds of ideas for next year. I can't wait for next year. I have all kinds of ideas, and next year starts with harvesting. So, like I said, this was the first field I planted. Now, one thing that I kind of did on this field is I did not go very deep on the chisel plows. This field typically gets a little wet. It's some low ground, it's some clay ground, so it kind of gets wet. So I wanted to like not go as deep in case as we're harvesting and it's a little wet, the combine doesn't half sink or gets not stuck, but just unable to like drive through the wet ground. And I gotta say, I am a little underwhelmed on how these beans grew in this field. Now, they are shorter. They kind of grew slower. They're also turning slower. Like the other fields that I planted, 2 or 3 days after this field, they're already turning and they're just real nice. So I did lay down some of that 5-25-25 fertilizer with the drill. I did everything in this field. Just they didn't do very well. Could be the soil. Who knows? That's why we're gonna finally do some soil tests. I've always been like, you just put down fertilizer and it needs lime anyway. But bad attitude. Brother's been telling me to do it for years, and I just blew it off. But no, we're gonna get it done now because everyone else is doing it, right? Hefty Brothers do it. All those YouTuber people do it, so we're gonna do it too. And we're gonna get some help from some peeps out in Cambridge Springs. There's a Centera co-op out there. Talked to a fella a couple days ago about maybe getting some seed for next year. Talked about some stuff, and he's gonna come out here. And we're gonna fucking took 23 years, but whatever the fuck. Hey, whatever. Here we are. So, first field, soybeans. This is a seedway. This is a 2.8 maturity. Everything that we planted this year was a 2.8 maturity. And I gambled a little bit. It was pretty early for this area, at least for me, my opinion of all the years that I've been doing this, where we get a hard frost middle of May, sometimes late May. or frost enough to ding some shit. But yeah, this was pretty early. So let's check out these beans. One other thing about not only this field, but all the other soybean fields is that I did spray on time and I got good coverage, but the past month and a half, there's been like these tall guys, these tall weed guys that just kind of pop straight up. It's not a lot. It's not bad. But there are some weeds in the field, but this is also the first time I'm doing 15-inch beans. I can't imagine that has anything to do with it. I mean, the beans crop canopied real well, just like they would do on 7.5-inch spacing. So, I don't know. But I'm doing something different next year, which will help weed control. All right, let's see what we got here. So, yeah, these beans are definitely shorter than what I got growing on those other fields out over there, and we'll see them soon. But we got some beans on these guys, though. And I also did a stand count on these like 3 months ago, and there was also less beans. I think it had something to do with the planter, maybe not going deep enough. Maybe I was going too fast. So that's something that we're also going to address on the planter here. Let me actually pull one of these. I'll grab this one right here. I'll actually grab two. They're kind of intertwined. All right, whatever. So here's two. I don't know. That's not too bad for me. Bottom pods, there's some 2s and 3s. There's a 4 right there. Let me try and... There we go. There's a 4-beaner right there. There's another one. There's a couple right here. How about that? So these short little beans, it's got at least some 4-beaners on there. There's no way that this field is going to be any worse than anything that I've ever done in the past. That being said, if I can get away with, what's 6 times 4? 240. So yeah, anything like 200 bushel out here, this would be fucking great. But yeah, the beans are starting to turn. If we look at some of these leaves, we do got a little bit of some disease issues going on, kind of like late in the season. I did not spray fungicide on these beans because I've never really done that. That's something that I will be doing something different next year, is some sort of fungicide program. I'm definitely going to use the V5 fungicides for corn. And you can use that same fungicide on the beans, especially when the beans are starting to flower, which I happen to have done on 5 acres over on a section over on the other field. And as I would look at the fields, I don't really notice a difference. But we're going to look a little closer, at least on the vegetation side, and see if there is a difference. But these beans are turning. They look kind of okay, but the other ones look better. So we're going to look at them now. Okay, here is the next field that we planted. This would have been on May 12th. It's about like a 4-acre plot right here. Kind of goes behind those trees right there a little bit. But what I kind of did in this field was sort of more of a time thing. I chisel plowed this field and then I planted it. Did not cultipack it, where you kind of smooth it out and kind of, not push, but kind of go over with some rollers, kind of level the ground out. Yeah, these beans are a lot taller. I mean, these are well up to my thigh in most areas. They're a lot longer. There are some patches of green. This is interesting right there. See that patch of green right there? Very interesting how that spot is staying green, but all around it is turning yellow. Very, very interesting. Again, just like the other field, weeds have seemed to have crept up. But now that I'm thinking about it, because like I said, I did a stand count back in July, and it was just a much lower population than what I was trying to plant. So maybe because the plants are not that tightly populated, even though they canopied, basically weeds kind of crept through. And I put a full rate on, so it's not like I skimped on spray. All right, let's get down here. Let's try and find a plant here to pull. Jesus Christ. That is a tall ass plant, dude. Yeah, I don't ever remember having beans this good before. I remember maybe 6-7 years ago, I've had beans that were up to my thigh, almost up to my waist. And then you combine and it's like 20 bushel, 30 bushel, but it could be, there's other factors that we're getting into now, so that's going to be a lot less this year, guaranteed. I don't see any 4-beaners on this one, but definitely a lot of pods. A lot of pods. Yeah. Look how thick that stalk is, dude. Yeah. Next year we're going to have 110,000 of those. 110,000, which would be twice as much as what is probably out here now. Yeah, so they're turning. I'm going to predict 2 weeks. 2 weeks. So towards the end of the first week of October. And we will have the combine going and ready. We're going to be planting some cover crops out here. After harvest, there's all kinds of shit we're going on. But nevertheless, this area here is coming along. Speaking about weeds, you can kind of see there's a whole bunch of weeds right there. As I was spraying, and I didn't realize that I ran out right there as I got to the road. And I turned around and I started to come back, and that's when I realized that I was out. So I didn't realize that it ran out right there of that last 50 feet. So let's go check that out. In the heavy area where there's weeds, like how well do beans grow? There's some nice beans there, but there's no weeds. Decent beans here, some weeds. Beans out there, not so much weeds. And then you got this. You walk into here. Very little beans. Very little beans. Look at the grass, it's just tall. Here's a bean. Real thin. Can't even grab onto it because there's so many weeds. Yeah. So that's what happens when you don't do weed control. The weeds overtake because they're bigger and taller and all that kind of shit. So I probably won't even... I would have to. I would run this through the combine just so that it's all chopped up and spread, you know? So... we're going to use the tractor to drive up into the field. But since I'm right here, let us take a quick look at the combine. Here she is, man. This is a great piece of machinery. 1981 International Harvester 1460 with the axial flow design. This thing is awesome. So yeah, it's old. It still works. And if you ask me, it's going to work for a while, another 5 or 6 years. Other people don't think so, but whatever. We'll see. That's what I like to say. We will see. Things that we are working on. Last year, our last hopper load, we were unloading this chain system right here. It buckled. This plate right here bolts on right here. And under the stress of running all these chains and the augers, it pretty much collapsed. Buckled, this bent, this hit up there, rubbed in there, making sparks. It was a complete mess. Long story short, I was able to run it with one auger at a time to unload it, but sat pretty much all winter and spring, and now we are working on it now. We got it figured out. It actually is not that bad considering what happened. We're just going to be adding some steel up against this. We're also going to be adding some sort of like channel angle iron to kind of cover up this hole and also add some extra support. This will get bolted on the piece of steel and also some extra support things on there. And then this thing will be tip-top magoo, at least on the auger unloading deal. Other things that's going on with this guy is the concaves. Now what the hell is a concave? Well, it's these grates right here. There's basically 6 sets of grates. These first 3 here get bolted on the front portion of the rotor, and then you have the ones that are bolted in the back. So let's go up in here to the rotor. This is our rotor. Now, I'm not doing a good job explaining, which is pretty much how I am. Here's the front of the combine, and this is where you have the combine head, and it gathers up your corn and other debris, and it feeds into this feeder hose throat, and basically goes in and gets fed through this throat right up to the front of the auger, or the rotor. Here is where the rotor rotates, and that is a sensor that shows you how fast it's running, which is cool. Something that still works on here. And then when we come into here, you will see the rotor. And since I took the concaves out, you can see it. We got this guy neutral. So this guy is rotating, I think, this way, like that. So corn comes in from the throat into here, and you have these concaves that are bolted and go just underneath and around this rotor. Beans and let's just say soybeans, they come in and they get caught in between these guys here and then the concave. And you can adjust the height of the concave so that it can thrash it better. And then if the stuff falls through the concave into here, and this feeds down to our sheaves right there that shake. You got this fan right here that blows air through the sheaves, which blows all the light stuff and the dust, and the beans fall down to an auger that sits down here and then feeds it over to a little elevator, and it takes it to the hopper, which is up here. So we took these concaves off just to make sure that they seem okay. Some of them look a little iffy, but they're still okay to go. And I was able to do some research on this stuff, and we can put on these cover plates, which basically covers a portion of the concave where stuff won't fall through, and is able to assist in the thrashing, and actually do a better job of not cracking or damaging the grain. So that is something that we're working on in conjunction of that. Other things that need done is there's wooden bushings that these ride on way down there. Those need replaced because they're rotten. On the other side, there's some holes on the return auger elevator over here on this side of the combine. Here's this clean auger that goes right up to the hopper. This here is our, I just called it, whatever doesn't get thrashed goes back to the auger. As you can see that there's holes right there. So we lose grain there. I think there's another hole right there. So all this needs covered up so we don't lose any yield. I did get a yield monitor this year, and we're going to plan on installing that on this combine. That'll be the last thing we do, even if we have to skip it for beans. But there's that. We got a new chain. So this clean elevator has these paddles here. So corn comes in from the bottom, and basically it goes this direction, and the corn just kind of sits and rides up the paddle all the way up to the top. These look kind of wore, so we bought a whole new set. That should help on not damaging any more grain. Those are the main things. There was a wiring issue, but we replaced that. We got new batteries for this. There's some holes that need to be patched up in front of the cleaning sheaves. And we're also going to give this guy a nice wash. Got a power washer with some soap. So we'll clean this guy off as well. So yeah, in about 2.5 weeks, all of this will be ready to go. Okay. Let's go in the tractor and go for a ride. This does burn oil, so I want to make sure it's just below full. Good enough for what I'm doing. It's going gear. Now it's not. Diesel. Case diesel. This stuff here was planted maybe 4 days after the field over here. And it's just starting to turn. And like I said, this stuff just looks way better, just taller. There's still weeds, but not as much. There's some weeds poking up. Stop right here. I don't know if I filmed it or mentioned it, but we were short a bag of beans. So I had to go over to my buddy Dan's and steal. I literally stole a bag. I went to his house and literally stole. I want to show you what we got here. This one isn't too impressive, but it was right next to 4. So 4 of them look just like this. And again, I think my stand count was really low. So there's probably 50 pods on here, but that's okay. There's a whole bunch just like it. No 4s. I'm going to tell you what, dude, that's going to change next year. Yeah, so I stole a bag of Dan's, and his was of a different maturity. His was actually, I think, a 3. I think that's the one I stole. So ours is a 2.8. And it was right around here is where we planted that last bag. And you can see right there, see that strip? That is Dan's beans. And let's go and compare these beans versus the other ones. So yeah, these are yellowing a lot sooner. I'm trying to find a decent one here. Again, pretty tall, skinny, not very bushy, but again, this is right next to a bunch of other ones. Bunch of 3s, no 4s. And then let's go pretty much 5 feet over here. Can't even fucking walk in here. Ah. This one seems a little fuller than the other. Maybe a tad taller. Again, I do not... there's one 4-potter right there. Another one right there. Another one right there. Okay. Yeah. But at least there's beans here. You know, we were short an acre. So thanks to Dan letting me steal his bag. But yeah, this is coming along. I'm just glad that we got beans like this year. We got some August rains early on. Didn't really rain too much at the end of August, but there's beans here, buddy, and I think we're gonna have a pretty good yield all across the board. We're gonna go drive up and go back where stuff doesn't really grow as good up there, so we'll see how good that is. Okay, so we're in the middle of this one portion of the field here. This is sort of a low spot. It's usually wet here. I also strategically kind of lift the chisel plows here a few inches. And again, things are kind of thin here. But as far as thin beans go, they still look great. Definitely weeds. Again, there's weeds in here. Could be just, again, the thinner population, but whatever beans are growing, they're tall. And again, I am not sad about it at all. I'm happy. They're not off the ground yet, but so far, yeah. So I'm in an area where I actually sprayed the fungicide. It was probably early July. And I am not noticing a big visual difference between the two. Now, I was using more of a plant health fungicide versus the other stuff that actually help prevent diseases, like stuff that's on these leaves here. So I cannot really say if spraying that Quadris on the beans right at R1, if it did any good. I mean, maybe if you look at this compared to looking at that, that seems to be more yellow than over here. I guess the plant, lives a little longer when you spray it with the Quadris. I flew a drone over here last week and I just did not notice a difference at all. But again, there's beans out here and they're growing. They're tall. And this is usually a part in the field where it's kind of So, okay. Okay, so we're all the way in the back of the field here. All the way down there is a farmer. That's well over a half a mile away. And this looks a little more of what I'm used to. Beans are just about up to the knee. Again, thinned out. And again, it could be my fault, the planter fault. But there are beans out here. And we can get them all, I think. So, walking into here, the beans do look a little better. So yeah, corn will be over on this side next year. And I got all kinds of plans. We might have access to some 90-day corn, hopefully relatively cheap. Guy's not going to use it, so give it to us. And that'd be kind of cool to grow some 90-day corn, get it planted in May. I'm going to have a plot over there with some of our 100-day corn that I like to use. We're going to try some different populations. I want to get another variety of 100-day and plant it side by side maybe. I don't know. I keep changing my mind on what I want to do. But back to this. This, again, is kind of what I expect in this side of the field. But there are beans, and they're kind of tall. Taller than what I'm used to back here. Let's let me find something. There's a 4. Look at that. 2, 4, 6, 8. So if there's 8, 1, 2, maybe 40 pods or so, 40 or 50. Again, if every plant has 50 pods, and there's 3 in each pod, and there's 75,000 plants out here, that's still close to 60 bushel. And yeah, things are turning. This is a lot better than years prior. So what did we do different? Well, we used a chisel plow. So that should have gone a couple inches deeper than what we usually do with either the maul bore or discs, definitely deeper than discs. Cultipacks, they had a better seed bed, but I think that promotes weed growth 5 days sooner. So we're going to try and not do that next year. Also, I used the grain drill before we chisel plowed, and I laid down 300 pounds of a P&K. So there is more fertility out here than we've ever had. It was always where we used triple 19 for corn, and then whatever was left over, the beans would just take it. That way you're not spending money on fertilizer for 2 crops. Okay, sure. That's if you like having 30 bushel beans. I'm tired of it. So we're going to spend the money to make more money on beans and corn. And I think already, by adding those 6 bags per acre, and if we're going to get like a 30 to 40% return. 30 bushel versus 50 bushel. That's 20 bushel more times $13 a bushel. And by adding 6 bags of fertilizer, that's like $65 an acre. Yeah, it's pretty worth it. Well, that's going to kind of conclude. Well, that does conclude the beans. I'm going to do the corn next, but I got practice tonight, so I am going to cut off my video here, and then when I get a chance I will do a corn video of how the corn is looking. I think I'm also very optimistic about the corn. Things that we did extra, definitely could tell a difference. Really excited for next year, also of where to put the beans. It's just all kinds of excitement, and it is going to start at harvest time for next year. So super exciting. I don't know how boring this is, but basically just kind of get an idea of how the beans are looking. Other than some of extra weeds, I think I'm pretty happy, and we're gonna do better next year. All right, until next time.